If you're a saver who budgets every single dollar but still feels stuck, or a spender that just hates budgets in general, you're going to love this episode. I'm going to explain why budgeting doesn't actually work and what you can do instead to build real wealth today. Tune in. Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles. You're a cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. This show is for you if you want to become work optional, where you have enough passive income coming in that you work because you want to, not because you have to. This show is also for you if you actually want to be in a place where you not only just take care of your own family's needs, but you have more than enough to bless the lives of those around you, creating a ripple effect through the lives of others because you are blessed financially and you can spread that love and those blessings to others too. This is what that show is here for you to do today and how you can actually do that. Thank you for tuning in. You guys have been binging. You've been sharing these episodes with others, and I so appreciate it so much. I'll just remind you, if you guys haven't done so already, maybe you've been following this podcast, but you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so today. And if you already have done all that, great, then leave us a review. We would love to hear from you, and especially how we can better serve you and make this show more impactful in your own family's life as well. So be sure to do that today. Okay, so let's talk about budgeting, right? That big old fat B word, 6-letter B word that's kind of nasty. Budgeting, right? Now, I'll tell you, like, I was raised that budgeting was everything. Like, it was always about spend as little as possible, save as much as possible, and then you just try to live this cheap lifestyle. I talked about this before when I talked about how many of us will get caught up and realizing that financial freedom is not a number, it's a feeling. It's really a state of being and a state of mind. And you have to have that abundant state of mind. Now, budgeting, unfortunately, has been taught from a scarcity perspective. So the real question is, how do stewards do this in a sense where they don't necessarily budget, as I would say? I'll give you a different term of what I use instead, but actually use this as a way to build wealth faster. And just so you're aware, if you're a disciplined saver, congratulations for doing that. But even if you're a spender and you just say you hate budgeting, I wonder if there's a reason for that too. So let's kind of dive in. I'm going to address both perspectives and how you can both become a wiser steward of your money so that you can build wealth faster than you would if you were just a disciplined saver trying to live on a budget, a tight little budget, and then realize later on you have to keep living that tight budget. So savers, I'm going to talk to you first. No, I'll take that back. I'm going to talk to you spenders first, because spenders, in a lot of ways, this is going to be relief for you, because I think the word budget, and in fact, I think the whole concept of what they refer to as budgeting sucks. I'll just say it like that. I think budgeting sucks. And why is that? Because here's why. And this might be what you've experienced as well. Granted, now you might be in this here and now, present moment, trying to enjoy the here and now, and budgeting just gets in the way, right? And I get that. And there is a part of stewardship that does say, what can we do in the here and now? But there's also a later aspect too that we have to be aware of as well. There is a discipline involved. But I'll say this because I've done both of these things. Even though I've lived more as a saver, I went through a period where I actually went more on the spender side. I actually did this before the recession hit back in 2007. I started to enjoy my money for the first time ever, right? I swung the pendulum the other direction and tried it out. And I realized that spending can have its enjoyment. For example, the fact that I can actually create memories now with my family is awesome, right? The fact that I can enjoy the things that I want to do right now is amazing. That is a good thing. And I think a lot of more savers should be able to feel that feeling. In fact, when you're talking about stewardship, but those that are savers need to become more like spenders, and spenders need to become more like savers. There's actually a nice happy medium in the middle. So for you, if you're a spender, you do need to learn to create a little bit more discipline and learn to save money, because it actually allows you to have a much more free life. Because right now you're living a life of hustle, right? You got to keep killing, you got to keep hunting to be able to eat. And if you don't kill enough, if you, in essence, in other words, if you don't create enough money for what you're spending, you're always working. You're always stuck in this hamster wheel you can't get out of. You're trapped. And yes, you might enjoy some of your life now, but you've got to keep hustling and hustling and hustling. And there's never that peace of mind that can come when you know that more than enough money is coming in, or you have more than enough money to take care of all your needs beyond the hustle, right? And so you end up in a perpetual life of hustle. Hustle is only supposed to be a season, but it's not supposed to be an entire lifetime. And unfortunately, if you're a spender, you'll spend an entire lifetime always going. But here's the problem. Maybe you tried budgeting before. Maybe you tried to do that little thing called a budget and you said, all right, I'm going to set a budget for myself. I'm going to do this, this, and this. And you kind of swing the pendulum. You try to deprive yourself of everything, which sucks, by the way. It's not fun because you went from having the faucet wide open to then turning it all off. And then you feel like you have nothing. So there's no enjoyment. You're just trying to be a strict penny pinching saver, which you're not, by the way, and nor should you be. And as a result, of course, what happens? You set this budget, and not only is it painful, but then all of a sudden you realize that the budget breaks because you set this certain number for you. The number's too low. And what happens is that you go over budget and you say, why did I do this budget in the first place? I'm just going to break it. So screw that. Forget the budget. I'm going to throw it away. If that resonates with you at all, that's normal. In fact, of the hundreds and hundreds of couples I've coached, I've run into this many times. Many people do like to have this present day benefit, but unfortunately, when they try to become a saver, the issue is that if they try to live on a budget, they don't even know how much they're spending anyways, or how much they should be spending. They just try to cut it off like a smoker, just trying to live on patches, right? And it just doesn't work. Vice versa. I'm going to come back to you in a little bit too. Now let's go to the savers. The savers, you love the budget. You're supposed to live on the budget. Unfortunately, the budget ruins and runs your life. Amazing how one letter makes a big, big difference, doesn't it? But it does run your life. And so you try to live on the strict budget. Now, same thing can happen to you as well. You might find a lot of guilt and shame happening because all of a sudden, what if that budget breaks? What if you spend more than what you were wanting to? You're going to feel guilt. And so you're going to feel something different where a spender might say, ugh, this thing's stupid. Why am I doing this? I sacrifice all this. I can't even live on a budget anyways. Forget about it, right? I'll just keep hustling. And they go back to that. For you, it's different because it's all about shame and just hating the fact that you spend any money. I believe it or not, I actually had a client who tried to convince me he was a spender because he paid bills. He's like, no, I'm a spender. I have to pay for bills. And that makes me a spender. I was like, no, that makes you living. You're surviving. I'm sorry, but you're going to have to buy toilet paper at some point. You're not making your own toilet paper. Are you making your own toilet paper? No, I'm not. Okay, well, great. Well, you're going to have to spend money. Okay. Yes, you're going to have to pay taxes. Yes, you're going to be spending on water. Yeah, but I hate it. Exactly. Because you're in so much scarcity as a saver, spending anything just reminds you how much freedom you lack. But unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you save millions and millions of dollars, as I just proved in the video we talked about just in the previous episode. No, that doesn't matter because you're going to be stuck, right? You're going to realize that spending anything just destroys it and you'll never be financially free. And so a budget for you doesn't seem to work either. So what do you do instead? What does a steward do with their money? Remember, a steward is in between the spender and the saver. It's right in the middle because money is meant to be used. You're not supposed to just hoard up all this money the rest of your life and then never use it. What's the purpose of that? There's no enjoyment. There's no real benefit. In fact, that's actually lost opportunity if you don't use your money. Use your money to maybe bless your family, not just by helping them inherit it, maybe help them learn how to steward it as well. Maybe you can help them actually do better with it while you're still alive and help guide them along versus waiting until after you're dead and you just drop money on their laps and they don't know what to do with it. Or, another thing too is what if you don't use it to serve other people outside of your family? What if you could have used it to actually bless more lives? What if it could have made the difference in someone's life that they could get to college, right? And actually have a decent education and make a decent income? What if you could create a scholarship program because of that? Even if it's small, what if it just was helping one person? Maybe it was a family friend. You could bless more lives being a steward of your money. The spenders, same thing. Yes, you might spend money and you're like, hey, I'm doing that right now. Well, great. But the problem is you're going to always keep hustling and that hustle will end. What happens at that point? I've known people that have hustled, made millions and millions of dollars. And at the end of the day, when they hit their 70s, they're tired, worn down, and they have nothing to show for that wealth. They've got nothing. Sometimes they don't even have a house. Right? They've just literally been renting their whole life because they're always just spending. And then it's gone. It's easy come, easy go. And then they live their life full of regret saying, now I'm at a point where I don't want to hustle anymore, but I have to keep hustling for the rest of my life, even if my health won't permit it. And now I become a drain on the system. Now I become a drain on other people because I didn't prepare, because I wasn't a wise steward of my money either. So instead of doing a budget, which by the way, budgets don't work, for the very reason is this: people don't know how much money they're spending or what they're supposed to spend. Budgeting is not step one. I like to create what I call as a spending plan. Because the truth is, as a steward, money is meant to be used, is meant to be used to help other people, but you're meant to use it in a way that comes back to you and creates dividends, that creates more interest, that grows and multiplies to the point where you feel fine with your stewardship. And yes, there could be a point where you say, this is too much stewardship. I don't want to go beyond this. That's fine too. You can choose your stewardship. You can choose how many millions of dollars you want to have under your stewardship. If you've been following this podcast, you're probably looking for great ways to create passive income right now, right? Well, we got you covered here with Central Lending. Central Lending specializes in alternative investments that actually are designed to create steady returns and long-term financial security for you and your family. Now, they prioritize transparency. They love, building those strong relationships, giving you that confidence and peace of mind, knowing that you have your money working harder for you, so you don't have to work so hard for that money. You want to learn more how to do that? Go to centrallending.com and check out what they've got today to create your passive income and wealth creation right now. You might want tens of millions or hundred millions of dollars, but not everybody does. Some of you might be fine with just hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe in the high hundreds of thousands, maybe not quite a million, but up there. And that might be fine depending on what kind of lifestyle you choose to live. There's so many ways you can do this, but you get to choose to be the steward. So instead of focusing on a budget, focus on a spending plan, because money is meant to be used. Even if you spend that money into savings. Yes, you can actually spend money into savings. Give every dollar a job. That's what a steward does. It says, okay, money's coming in. Great. Now, if you have X amount of dollars left over every month, let's just say you have an extra $1,000 surplus every month. Well, what do you do with that money? You got to figure out what would a wise steward do with it. And that's different for every situation. For some people, it could be, I just need to pay down some of this high interest credit card debt. That might be my best thing. For some of you, it might be, I need an emergency fund first before I worry about paying off that high interest debt, right? I need to build up a little bit more emergency fund and get that going. For others of you, you might say, I need to build up my savings, but I need to do something with the savings that actually start paying me passive income like you talk about, Chris. How do I do that, right? Those kind of things. And that's the thing. That's the choice of a steward is, what do I do with this cash? I am spending it. And by the way, let's just say you pay off one of your credit cards. Maybe you free up $300 a month by paying off credit card and you're feeling so good. What do you do with that $300? You spend it now into savings, or you spend it into paying off that next loan, or whatever it might be as that next step for you. That's what you do. You got to recapture everything. This is why we call the infinite banking thing, we've been calling it as the freedom fund, because that's where a lot of people are starting to take their money and instead put it there. Because I've had clients say, wait a minute, Chris, if I can not just save, not for retirement, but for earlier retirement, maybe I can do that. Maybe I can put that money there. Wait, Chris, couldn't I use this for college funding? Yes. Or even if they don't go to college, I can use it for whatever they want. Yep, you can. You get to choose wherever it goes. Well, maybe I take my money I've been saving for college funding and put it in here too. And what do I do with the extra cash every month? You can put it into there. Now, I'll tell you this. Sometimes I still have people use savings accounts. I won't have people put all of their extra cash into their freedom fund, their life insurance policy, right? It might be like 75 or 80% of what they could be doing as a max contribution. And knowing that the minimum is going to be maybe 1/4 or 1/5 of that. For example, somebody's like, hey, between everything, I can actually put away $25,000 a year. Cool. Well, maybe we only do a max policy of $20,000 a year. So that extra $5,000 can still go to a bank savings account or something. But instead, you do a policy, you do $20,000 a year as a max contribution, knowing you might only need to put in $4,000 a year. So the great thing is you're saving $2,000 a month, but you only need to put in $4,000 a year. Somewhere between $4,000 and $20,000 a year, you can put it away. Anything extra can go in the bank. It can go to use for other things. Maybe it's something to go invest in your own business. Maybe you're trying to reinvest the money there to grow your business. I did that. I actually almost in 2020, I was looking at buying a franchise, and then I realized I've got a business. What if I doubled down and made Money Ripples bigger than it is? What if I actually started hiring people as a team versus being self-employed? What if I do that? What if I actually start doing videos? Because believe it or not, I didn't do videos till 2020 because I was like, it's just so much easier. I can edit really quickly if it's just an audio and put it out. Go on to Apple, podcasts and Spotify and all that kind of stuff. And so I did that for several years. But I realized for many, many people, they wanted the visual thing too. So I did the visual, right? So anyways, there's so many things you can do as a steward with that money, but focus on the spending plan first. Now, here's what you do. Could you create a budget? Yes. Again, I call it a spending plan. But before you create a spending plan, here's step one. Don't create a spending plan. That's step one. Step 1.5 is instead track your money. This is where we use things like Monarch money, right? Or whatever it might be. I used to use Mint. Now Mint doesn't really do a good job anymore. But you got like Rocket Money, you got Monarch money, you got those kind of tools you can use that you might pay for, of course, which is fine. but it helps you track your money. And I like it because if it can do it efficiently using systems, and maybe none of those programs work for you. Maybe you're a spreadsheet kind of person. Maybe, I mean, not very many people are in this place, but you might be a paper type of person. I don't recommend that because you could lose it. I like to have things saved that can be put into a cloud. But I know my wife, her preference is she likes to use her Google Docs, right? She likes to use the Excel version. Well, I can't remember what that's called anymore. She uses that version that she keeps track of and she keeps keeping tabs on it, right? Fine, whatever, as long as you're doing it on a regular basis. I recommend at least every other week that you're tracking your money, if not weekly. If you do it weekly, it's very easy. It's like if you're trying to eat a humongous hamburger, it's just easier to take one little bite at a time versus trying to shove the whole thing in your mouth. Same thing here. Do it weekly, and you'll go through and start categorizing your transactions. And as you start to do that for the next 6 to 12 months, this is the first step or first step and a half, right? Don't budget. Do this. Unless it's a fixed expense, that's different. But for these variable expenses like food, utilities, even like if you're eating out, it could be things like, maybe you're going to an entertainment or amusement, birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, and all those kind of things that you do that maybe are at different times of the year. Maybe you go travel more and there's more gas being consumed in the summertime than the winter, or vice versa, depending on how you're doing it. Track that for at least the next 6 or 12 months. And what will happen is you'll start to get a very good average or idea of how much you're spending on average in that category. So when you want to create a spending plan, you could say, okay, I can see right now that on average in the last 12 months on gasoline, let's say I've spent $300 a month. Cool. Maybe I'll put it $300 a month, or maybe it's like $280, but you put it at $300 a month just to allow for a little extra room. Now, if you don't spend it all, great, fine, good. Take the little extra money, you can keep it there, roll it over. And there's ways to do that where you have it roll over to the next month because there might be bigger months than others, just like when you travel or do trips, right? You might have more gas consumed on particular months than others. That's okay. Roll it, that balance into the next month. And remember, that money is still planned for that expense. Now, if it's a mortgage payment, it's probably going to be the same for the most part, right? So that's going to be a fixed expense. Those are easy. You could create that spending plan right now, but it's the variable expenses that always trips people up. That's the one that either depresses the savers because they get it wrong because things go up, especially with inflation. Yes, prices do increase. Or two, you get the spenders that, of course, say, I didn't even do it right in the first place because they're just guessing on a number. There's, willy-nilly just trying to figure out like, well, here's the number I should be spending. And then they don't spend that. They realize it's more, which is usually the case. Most people underestimate how much they spend. That's why I have to go back to it. Now you might find out, you're like, wait a minute, I make less money than what I'm spending right now. Do I need to make adjustments? Yes. But you don't know how to do that until you track your money. That is your first step. That is what the wealthy do. Again, the wealthy want to be wise stewards of their money. They want to track it. They want to figure out how to minimize it. I even did like a 5% challenge with a lot of clients. I'd say, hey, if you can find a category, maybe it's groceries, see if you can knock it down 5%. That's it. If you're spending, say, $1,000 a month, that's just saving $50 a month. But if you're spending $10,000 a month and you save 5%, that's $500 a month back in your life. Maybe that helps. Now, for those of you that maybe are negative cash flow, this might be the wake-up call to say, okay, either I need to reduce some spending in these different categories where I can reduce spending, or I need to make more income. And I'll tell you this, most people usually avoid the make more income conversation. They'd rather cut down on their expenses, and that's okay. You can do that, but you also need to address the income part too. Remember, in my story, right, during the recession, when I started to actually track my money, I found out I was over $15,000, $16,000 short every month. I was in the hole every month. And so that reality, and just so you know, don't use this as a way to get depressed. If you're married or you're in a partnership, don't use this as a way to create guilt with the other partners because maybe somebody spent money on this or that. Don't do that. Look at this as if it's not your situation. Take away the emotion. Look at this, say, okay, here's what I'm seeing. What would I recommend if this were my friend? What would I suggest some changes to be made? So this is the next step you do as you start to do that and you start to track the money. What are some adjustments I can make? And then, of course, that third step is step 3, make the spending plan. So step 1, if we take out the stop budgeting part, step 1 is track your money for the next 6 to 12 months. Step 2 is evaluate, am I being a wise steward in all these areas? Are there some areas I should be cutting back? Maybe other areas I should be spending more. Maybe there's places I'm not playing enough. Maybe I should have a more of a slush fund to do some fun things and enjoy life. This is especially true for you, saver, especially if you're a super saver or a hoarder of money. You need that. You need that. in your system. And you're probably gonna have to create the spending plan, which is step 3, create the spending plan. 1, 2, 3, right? Track your money, make adjustments, create the spending plan, and then try to follow it, right? And then you're going to adjust it along the way. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to have to be adjusted and done. And yes, you might have to look at ways to create more income, and that's fine. And by the way, for some of you, you already have the resources to create more income, creating passive income if you've got money set on the sidelines, not doing everything. That's the thing you'll start looking at next, won't it be? Is like once you get to be a wise steward of your money and create the spending plan and stop budgeting, but create the spending plan instead, now you're going to start saying, what can I do with the rest of this money? How can I make it work harder for me? Hey, you can always go to moneyripples.com and we can help you there. You can book a call and see what you can do there. But in the meantime, focus on the spending plan. Screw budgeting. Forget about it. It doesn't work. It's broken anyways. That's why governments can't live with it either, because they have a horrible type of system with their whole budgeting system. Instead, create a spending plan. But that's going to require you to start being disciplined to track your money for the next 6 to 12 months. That will be your next step. If you haven't done so already, go and make it a wonderful and prosperous week. And we'll see you